Allah. All right, let's start, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me again. I'm really excited. I can't believe Ramadan is in 2 weeks, inshallah, 2 weeks in a few days. So I'm looking forward to that, inshallah, as well as everybody else. So inshallah, today's topic is going to be Ramadan traditions. And before we get started with that, uh, here we go. Okay. Before we get started, I wanted to do a really quick Sha'ban check-in. So I just wanted to know, and nobody has to answer, but just think amongst yourselves, how's everybody's fasting and dhikr and their, your Quran? I know we still have 2 weeks, but I feel myself personally that it's crunch time, and it's down to those last few days of really preparing for Ramadan. I know from experience from the past, if I don't prepare properly for Ramadan, then usually when it starts, it hits me like a ton of bricks, and I feel like it's so overwhelming, and it takes me maybe 4 to 7 days to really catch up on a normal schedule, like a normal Ramadan schedule. So for me personally, one of my biggest goals is to make sure that my sleeping habits are different, which means less sleep, according to your own personal schedule, and to really reap the benefits of these last few weeks of Sha'ban. And then also Nisf Sha'ban, which is the half mark of Sha'ban, is I believe this coming Monday. So inshallah, we should really, try to spend our night on Sunday night emptying our hearts of any, anger or anything towards anybody else, and just ask Allah to forgive us. And we should forgive anybody else that has wronged us. And we should really attempt to fast on Monday, and continue to make the dua, Allahumma barik lana fi Sha'ban wa ballighna Ramadan. And we should, of course, continue to have our prayers on time and try our best to wake up for tahajjud. I think it's normal human nature to want to wake up for the suhoor time, to eat before we fast, which is definitely very important. So if we make it a habit to wake up for tahajjud right now, then inshallah it'll be easier to do both when Ramadan comes. And then also one last thing is to continue to do our salawat, inshaAllah, so that we can increase our, prayers upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we know, Ramadan is the month of the Quran, and it's the month that, of fasting. And, it's something that we should also renew our intentions. And, before we start our traditions with our family or in our own home, whatever your living scenario is, we have to renew our intentions. Why are we fasting? What are the benefits of fasting? And it's a good time, that we put together a tracker of sorts so that we can actually really develop that relationship with the Quran. And if you weren't able to hear the talk from a couple of weeks ago, as Ustadha Fadwa said, it's up, inshallah, on the YouTube website. And, it's a good way to just foster that connection that we can, inshallah, continuously keep for after Ramadan. Okay, so what I did is I put together a checklist of sorts for before Ramadan, as well as traditions that you can create and develop with your family for the month of Ramadan. So to begin with, these are a few things that I personally started to do before the start of Ramadan that I felt were very important to get out of the way, so that we can focus entirely on the month of Ramadan and not worry about the other extras, which actually do take up a lot of time. So the first thing, and I know I have up here, clean, organized home, and then decorate, prayer space, goals in mind. So those are, the most important things. But I'm also gonna give a few other things as a checklist that you can keep in mind for yourself if you want to create it as something that, you do yourself and your family. The first is to get all the Eid outfits and Eid gifts out of the way. It may sound like something that's, mundane and not really a big deal, but it actually takes a lot of time to do those things in Ramadan. And a lot of people get caught up in doing that. I myself have done that for many years in Ramadan. And I remember the last week of Ramadan, I would be scrambling, running around to different places, and I would run into a lot of other Muslims doing the same exact thing. And I felt a lot of guilt because I felt like, I can be doing so many other things right now, like worship. So something I started to do a few years back is to get those things out of the way. Also, last year we started something because of COVID, which is to buy Eid decorations for the car. That's something that we really enjoy doing as a family. I got some chalk markers, and we actually decorated the car with, Happy Ramadan, and we wrote different things. I remember I wrote honk, to say happy Eid. I'm sorry, that's what I wrote. I wrote happy Eid and honk for Eid. And kids really love that kind of stuff. I think it's important that we have these traditions so that our kids can feel very connected, especially living in the West, where there are so many other Islamic holidays that are, so evident and just all over the place. So we really have to take it up a notch in Ramadan. The second thing is making Ramadan treats for your friends and family. And I actually got this idea from a friend of mine who one year gave me a really beautiful, simple gift. It was a Ramadan lantern with some treats. And other ideas are things like, a mason jar with some dates in it. And you could tie it with a ribbon and put like a nice dua for iftar. And then that way you're actually, inshallah, receiving the reward of, feeding a fasting person. And so there are so many different options of getting dates now. I saw the other day maybe 4 different posts of dates directly from Medina being shipped over here. And so, we never used to be able to do those things in the past, but this is something that, mashallah, it's being facilitated for us. The third thing is cookies for your neighbors. Since it's COVID, I feel like maybe we should be a little more careful and considerate because, with all of the different people have different standards with the COVID thing. And I think, maybe it would be a better option to, get something from a professional bakery. And you can write a note in there explaining to your neighbors what Ramadan is all about. And it's such a good da'wah opportunity. Um, you know, my kids love doing that. They love giving to the neighbors. We usually do like sugar cookies shaped as crescents and stars. And you can buy those cookie cutters anywhere, like at Michael's. I know nowadays they have all kinds of Islamic cookie cutters, but you can just use whatever you have. You don't have to really go much out of your way. So that's something, and it teaches the kids to give without expecting anything in return. Because we actually didn't receive anything in return, but then subhanallah, when Christmas came around, our neighbors actually did get us an entire tin of cookies for Christmas. So that was a surprise. I didn't expect it. And so it strengthens ties with your neighbors. As we know, the Prophet ﷺ, there's a whole section in the hadith and seerah about our neighbors and how we should treat them. The next thing is, which is the first list on here, or the first on here, is to have a clean and organized home. So this might seem a little over the top, but I personally really like to do this. And it's to actually shampoo your rugs. I'm not talking about hiring a company. If you're able to, go ahead. But if you're able to shampoo your rugs, especially the prayer space that you're going to use, it really makes you feel like you're fully prepping for Ramadan, to have that environment and to welcome the angels and have that presence of the malaika, inshaAllah. And organizing your house, and that includes like your fridge and your freezer and your pantry and all that stuff. You don't want to have to do any of that in Ramadan. We should really try our best to not let any of that take us away from our worship. I mean, Ramadan is one of those once in a lifetime things. It happens once a year. We don't know if we're going to get it back again. And so, by doing all these like pre-Ramadan things, inshallah, it'll free our schedules to, have it fully for worship. And so really look at it as a deep clean. a deep spring clean. So, I think most of us during the springtime, and right now we're in the spring essentially, we like to kind of purge our closets and go through everything. So, do the same thing and get your family involved. Get everybody to do something, and everybody should have a job. And then that way it's not overwhelming and it doesn't seem burdensome. It's more of like you're all welcoming Ramadan together as a family. Um, and of course, our place of worship, our prayer space, should be beautiful. And it can be as basic as, a prayer rug. You can make yourself a i'tikaf corner. I know Dr. Rani is going to talk about, inshallah, i'tikaf during Ramadan. I love it when she talks about it. Um, there's just something so special about the way she explains it. And there are so many things. You can get like a tent, if you have children, they have like cardboard masajid these days that kids can, color and they can sit in. And, this area can also have all the masahif, the Qur'ans that will be used, as well as dhikr beads and prayer clothing and atr, the perfume. All of these things are really important because then you're showing your family that, okay, we take this seriously. This is a very special time. And, maybe, just maybe, these can be things that inshallah can continuously happen outside of Ramadan. And then also decorating. And this is where you put your personal creativity and flair into it. You can get things like fairy lights, Ramadan signs, banners, balloons, whatever it is that you like. I had somebody here in the Bay Area, she made these beautiful Ramadan calendars, and they're countdown calendars. So don't make a mistake of it. They're not Advent calendars. They're countdown calendars. And inshallah, at the end of this presentation, I'll show you some of the things that I personally will be using. And they're so easy to find these days on Etsy. And I also have like a list of websites, inshallah, that you'll be able to look at to get more ideas. And, these are things that also, for me, I actually get sad when we hang the Ramadan calendar because every time we put a felt star on it, it means one less day of Ramadan. And when we're halfway through, I get really emotional and I just almost don't even want to continue. I stop and then, my kids say, no, please, let's continue to add the stars because they're excited about Eid. And I'm sad that Ramadan's leaving. But it's still important, to have them, see the days of Ramadan unfolding. I know that there's something, out there called a Ramadan tree. I personally don't advise for it. I feel like when we create traditions, we should stick to the sunnah as much as possible. With even Ramadan, it's, sort of becoming commercialized by having so many different things. And, everybody has their tradition, but we should still try to stick to our sunnah and something that would be pleasing to Allah. Because ultimately we're trying to instill the love of Ramadan in Islam in the lives of our families and especially the youth and the children who, inshallah, decades from now, they can look back and say, I had the best Ramadan as a child because of these things that, my parents did for me. And they will remember these things. When I was younger, I remember, although we didn't have any decorations or anything like that, it just wasn't something they had at that time. My mom would always play specific nasheeds when we were little. And till now, I mean, this is decades later, I hear those nasheeds and I get very nostalgic and emotional because those were the most beautiful times for me. And, she would make us our favorite meals, and suhood would be a time where, she would make these specific dishes to fill us up. She would make this, macaroni dish that had, the Middle Eastern cheese in it and parsley. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but, I remember those things from childhood and I feel like I can smell everything and taste everything. And that's what we want. We want our kids to have that, especially with everything else that they're surrounded with. So the next tradition is to create a Ramadan activity basket. This is something that can not only be for kids, but it can be for really any age group. It depends on what you want to put in it. That's obviously age appropriate. When you're older, I have friends that, create like a little basket for themselves. And what that is for them is a set of books that they want to improve themselves with. So for example, purification of the heart, a specific dua book or dhikr book, salawat book that they use personally, a special, tasbih that they use only for Ramadan. So, those things are nice. Like you can create your own traditions. It doesn't just have to be for children. For kids, though, it could be things like Ramadan books. I actually went through to get a list together of Ramadan books for children, but the list was so overwhelming. And so instead, I'm just going to give you a website and then you can just search on their website. But mashallah, there are dozens of books on Ramadan alone for children. And I would say maybe 5 years ago, maybe none of them existed. So, mashallah, we're very blessed to have all of these things that our children can learn from, and Muslims of all ages alike. It's nice to also have crafts, and even Legos. I'll show you a really amazing Lego set that I got. That's very Islamic and beautiful. Another tradition that we have is to sit together and to prepare all of our Ramadan intentions and du'as. It's very important that and obviously we should be making our special du'as year round. But with Ramadan, we should really dig deep and try to figure out, okay, what else can I add to my du'a? Because this is Ramadan we're talking about. And so, if I think every phone now has like a note section in it. So what I do personally is when I think of something new to add, I immediately open my note section and I have it saved under my du'as, and whatever I can add in there, I add. And sometimes, I remember when I went on Hajj a couple of years ago, a friend of mine gave me her du'a list. I loved her du'a list so much, I kept it in my note section, but I erased her name, and she knows. And so if you hear somebody making a du'a, or you come across a du'a you feel like you can add, I highly recommend you add it and print it out if you want, even so that you could have it with you and remember to read it during tahajjud and when you break your fast and when you stand for qiyam at night as well. All these things are really important to prepare for before Ramadan. I know this can sound overwhelming, but again, these are just some of the traditions that my family does. And the reason I listed these specific four is try to keep in mind what works for your family, what works for your schedule, for your environment. How can you make your home a Ramadan home? So just keep those things in mind. And then the last thing on here before I move on to the next slide is, and I haven't done this, but I saw it, a friend of mine did it, is to do a 30 balloons countdown. So, I have a friend who has, one of those stairwells that kind of like goes upward, like it has like a rail. So she tied 30 balloons all the way around it. And she filled each one with like candy, some of them with confetti and candy. And every night at iftar, her kids would pop one of the balloons. And I thought that was such a cute idea. If you have the time to do that, that's super cute. And I think that kids will really love that. If not, like I said, this is just another thing, an extra thing that you can do. So another tradition that's so important for us is sighting the moon, the Ramadan moon. One thing I started to do, it can confuse kids, the whole idea of the Ramadan, the phases of the moon changing, and what does that exactly mean? Okay, and so I learned this one craft using Oreos, where you can actually teach your kids the phases of the moon using Oreo cookies. And again, that's another fun thing because at the end they can eat the Oreo cookies. And so that's something we try to do every year, and it's beneficial because inshallah, when they start to learn, jurisprudence like fiqh, Islamic rulings and stuff, they can learn about the different phases of the moon and then the Islamic lunar calendar and really get into the details of things. And so we've been moon sighting with friends. We don't have any immediate family here in the Bay Area. And so we've been moon sighting with friends every year for about 5 or 6 years now. And it's actually one of my favorite things to do the entire year, just welcoming the Ramadan moon. And what we do is everybody kind of brings their own treat to share. Somebody always ends up bringing chai, which I love. because I don't know how to make it. And, I like to bring glow sticks for all the kids. If you go to the dollar section at Target, they sell glow sticks. And they love it when it starts to get dark and they're all holding these glow sticks in their hands. Um, and then, there's a special song that I like to play for my kids. It's called Ramadan Tajalla Wabtasama. The Ramadan moon or Ramadan is upon us and it's smiling. And it's in Arabic, the entire thing, but my kids expect it. Like every year we have to play that song. And one extra thing I bought last year was actually a portable strobe light. And that's something that they really enjoyed. It was less than $5 and it just brought so much joy to their faces. I just think that it's those little things that really make a difference for them. And as we know, when we cite the Ramadan moon, there's a special dua that we make as well. And, if you want to take a picture of this really quickly before I move on to the next slide, this is a dua that we make when we cite the new moon. And it's a dua that we should teach to our kids so that inshallah, anytime that they cite the new moon for every month, not just Ramadan, they can make this dua. Okay, now on to fasting. So I broke this up into 3 different components, work, family, and school. If you are, a working professional outside, or even, now with COVID inside your house, talk to your work and tell them that it's Ramadan. Ask them if you're able to adjust your schedule. I know people that are physicians and, they make it a point to get the last 10 days of Ramadan off if they're able to, well in advance. Like if you, I asked a family member that's a physician, how does this whole schedule thing work? And they say that usually they get their schedule 1 month in advance or 2 months sometimes. And so by doing that, you're setting your own, ibadah up for success, inshallah, by being able to have those last 10 days off, inshallah. And let them know that you're fasting. I think it's important for people to know, and it's always a good da'wah opportunity, for people to know what Islam is all about. And I think by now a lot of people know what fasting is, but it's still very important to remind them that we're fasting. And the next thing is family. We should make arrangements with our family and with regards to what our game plan is, what our ibadah plan is, and outline how we need help. We should all be able to reap the benefits of Ramadan. And, if we don't speak up and say what it is that we need help with, then more often than not, the woman gets burnt out. Okay. I mean, it's just, that's how it generally is. But I think that if we try to make a group effort and everybody gets involved, and it could be very simple things, but if every single person does their part, then inshallah, everybody can benefit collectively. And the last thing is, if you're a student, if you're in high school or college, I know that can be very overwhelming. And, the schedule can't be changed necessarily, but we have to, remember to continue to try your best, basically, and, work hard with your studies. And remind yourself that even studying for your tests and doing well in school is a form of worship. So that's not something that we can slack on at all. Okay, so the next part is Ramadan with kids. For those of us, who have the younger ones, or even, the pre-tween and the teen group and everything. The first thing is to allow kids to set their own goals. And, we shouldn't force them to do what we want. We should always lead by example. So that goes back to, I think, something I said earlier is, with intentions and goals, everybody should sit down and really reflect and try to figure out, okay, what do I want to do differently in Ramadan this year that I haven't ever done? And to kind of really challenge yourself, And and sorry, these are not in the order that I'm speaking right now, what you see. The next thing is to do maybe a Quran challenge. So after everybody sets their own worship goals in Ramadan, aside from Quran, then everybody can create their own Quran challenge. And that's something that, it can be something they normally have never done. So for example, if your child reads 1 page of Quran and they read it well, and they're able to do more than that, then maybe they can challenge themselves to do 1.5 pages. but it has to be something that they want to do. And again, we should always lead by example. We should never force any of these things upon our kids. It's all about, really developing that love in their hearts, inshallah. And so the best way really is by leading as an example for them, inshallah. Um, I already covered the Ramadan activity baskets, as well as, I believe, baking. Baking is something that we actually love to do in Ramadan. And, we try to do it just as a family, just to have like a nice treat that sometimes carries over to the suhoor time as well. And so that's something that kids like to do and they enjoy it. Um, the next thing that I have in my own personal notes is giving. The gift of giving is to give both ways. And one year, the masjid, they set something up where kids brought in their favorite toys and sports equipment. And they worked together. Literally, I was there, I saw it. It was such a beautiful sight. There were maybe, I want to say 50 kids or 60 kids. They all brought in their own favorite toys, brand new. They weren't their own used toys. They were toys that they would have purchased for themselves. So I saw basketballs and footballs and these really massive Lego sets and just all kinds of things. And after they wrapped each present, they wrote out really beautiful Eid cards. And this was something that was passed out to, those that are less fortunate all across the Bay Area. And something that I found out recently that totally broke my heart is, so I'm the masjid that I go to here in the Bay Area is the Muslim Community Center in Pleasanton. And the Girl Scouts, the Muslim Girl Scouts are doing something where they're putting together, baskets for, children ages, I believe, 0 to 18, so like newborn to 18, for all the Muslims in the Bay Area. Now, before COVID, it was, I believe, less than 100. And if I remember correctly, I was told just a few days ago that they are up to about 700. And, I kind of had to like hear the person say it again because I was really, caught off guard and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. To know that there are 700 families that can't afford to get a, very basic, gift for their child on Eid, that just broke my heart. So try to see what your masjid is doing. Try to find out what it is that you can do for somebody else in Ramadan. So whatever, tradition or Eid gift that you're doing for your own family, please try to do it for somebody within your own community. Of course, it starts with your family. That's the first priority, and then extends to your immediate community and then onwards. But we have to look at our community before we go to another state or another country. And that's from the Sunnah. Another thing is a Ramadan giving jar. So something that, I know some people like to do is to have these cute Ramadan giving jars where every day, every family member puts whatever they want in there without anybody noticing. And it's not something we talk about. It's kind of like the secret thing. You just put whatever you want in there and then you walk away, nobody notices. And then, if you're able to go to your masjid on a Friday for Jum'ah, I believe they're all still taking donations and sadaqah and zakah and things like that. Then you can just put whatever is in the jar for the week. And, as we know, with our deen, subhanAllah, Allah is so merciful. A little always goes a long way in Islam. And Allah is so generous. Whenever we give something, even if it's like $5, Allah always opens a door so much greater than what we could ever possibly imagine. And, charity does not decrease wealth. We know that from a hadith. So, we should really keep in mind all of the different ways that we can give back in Ramadan and create that as a tradition that can be ongoing, inshallah, not just in Ramadan. One organization that I really love is Give Light. And no, they did not tell me to say this. I love Give Light because they do things for the orphans, around the world in different countries. And, of course, you can give to your masjid. There are so many like endless opportunities to help others in Ramadan. Okay, Ramadan iftars. So, Yeah, when life hands you a lemon, squeeze it over your lentil soup or your harira, whatever it is that you make. You know, there are a few traditions that we have in our family. We usually do something where each family member picks their favorite food for iftar. Um, and you know, what I personally do is there are a few dishes that I do like to have in Ramadan, but I don't want to make them in Ramadan. So there are literally three dishes that I already made maybe 3, 4 weeks ago, and I froze them. And obviously that's not necessary. That's kind of over the top, but that's just something that I personally, you know, like to have. And you know, it's also a fun tradition. You know, for example, one of my kids mentioned a specific dish, and I actually made it outside of Ramadan. It's kind of time consuming. And the reaction was, oh my gosh, this reminds me of Ramadan. And I was so shocked to hear that. I never thought of it like that. And so that's it. It clicked in my head. Okay, so food is also connected to Ramadan and not just as a iftari type of thing. It's more of like, okay, this is your special thing. We're going to do it in Ramadan and then maybe sometimes outside of Ramadan. Um, we should keep it simple. You know, we should try our best not to spend a lot of time in the kitchen and, you know, create a simple menu before Ramadan starts. So that's another thing that I love to do before Ramadan is create a list of all the different things that I could possibly make in Ramadan. I'm sure all of you listening are, you know, probably like, oh, I can just whip up a meal. I'm the type where if I don't have it laid out and, you know, listed out, then sometimes my, you know, fasting brain kicks in and I'm like, what are we going to eat? So I just try to make it easier on myself by creating a menu that's simplified. And, you know, I don't do more than a dish and then maybe like soup and then that's it, nothing else. I don't think that we should be excessive in Ramadan. We should be really careful in doing that. Because anyway, at maybe the third or fourth day, it's almost like we can't eat anymore. There's this cycle of iftar is so late and then suhoor is so early, so we almost have no more space to add any more food. And so it's kind of like you just eat whatever you can to get by. But I've noticed that. Okay. I apologize, it froze. Okay. So here's a, you know, an example. If you can cook in Ramadan for 2 days at a time, that would probably be your best option. So let's just say, for example, for one day you have a soup and then a protein of sorts and then fruit. So tomorrow, inshaAllah, if you attend, you know, the talk by Noha, and then you have Ustadha Ruhi as well. She talks a lot about, you know, health and nutrition. You know, all you have to do is listen to their talks and you'll know what to incorporate into your Ramadan menu, inshallah, to be healthy and strong. And it doesn't have to be anything excessive. This is just an example. So if you do 2 days of cooking at a time, then you're literally only cooking, you know, maybe 2 or 3 times per week. That's it. You're not doing more than that. Because again, you're going to have so many leftovers and leftovers last. They shouldn't be thrown away. And that's another thing. We should be really careful not to throw away food on Ramadan because then we're missing the whole point. So this is just kind of like a fake sample menu of what you can do for yourself. Okay, I'll wait for it to move on. So I wanted to know from the audience, what are some of your Ramadan traditions? I want to see them in the Q&A. I want to know what some of your traditions are for Ramadan and what you do with your family. So I'm going to give a couple
You can use
minutes.
the chat actually just to make it easier.
It's the chat?
Yeah, the chat box.
Oh, awesome. I didn't know there was one. Okay. So here we go. Somebody said preparing food before Ramadan. Yes. Yeah, it's so helpful to be able to do that, you know, and get those things out of the way as much as you can. I have people that I know friends that go as far as like chopping all of their onions for Ramadan. I personally don't do that. I don't mind chopping onions, but you know, it reminds me of in Syria, there's actually a place called There's like an entire little area where you can buy vegetables that are all pre-chopped, like every single thing you can imagine, even more than what we have here. Here are some more traditions that people have. Is one sister said moon sighting and listening to Dawood Warnsby, scan the sky. Oh, that's beautiful, mashallah. I haven't heard that. Another sister said a sadaqah jar. Another sister said preparing schedule for worship and du'as. Another sister said hanging lights in the house. Another sister said I prepare before Ramadan. Extended family members gather and bring different dishes. That's beautiful, mashallah. Inshallah, I hope that we can all do that this Ramadan and, you know, find a way to have iftar with our loved ones safely. Another is to sit down in the living room an hour before iftar with the whole family and everyone reads their own Quran. Yes, that reminds me of my childhood as well. That's something we would do at the suhoor time after we pray Fajr, is my mom would sit in her chair and then we would all sit in the living room together and everybody would read whatever it is from the Quran they're reading. So you brought back a really strong memory for me. Thank you. Um, Somebody here also does a pre-Ramadan camping trip. That's beautiful. I love that. Salat al-Jama'ah, that's very important, praying together. Listening to Islamic music, review iftar du'as, that's very important as well. Making sure all prayers are on time, reading Quran, having Quran recitation play before iftar, praying tarawih with loved ones. These are all beautiful traditions, and mashallah, see, everybody has it down. Everybody's ready, inshallah. And inshallah, we can, you know, welcome Ramadan in these beautiful ways. And, you know, let's keep in mind, Allah loves, you know, the Prophet Muhammad SAW, he said, the most beloved of deeds to Allah are those that are most consistent, even if it is small. So, you know, Ramadan is a time where we have to roll up our sleeves and really, really work hard. You know, my teachers in Syria would always tell us, like, when we have these once in a lifetime opportunities, and Ramadan is a once a year opportunity, then yes, it's okay to over exhaust ourselves if we're able to. Of course, look at your health, look at your situation first. You know, be practical. Don't do anything, you know, above what you're able to. But you know, if you have the strength and the ability, then sleep less, eat less, and do more worship than you've ever done in your life. You know, I can't remember, you know, where, you know, who I heard this from, but the way that your Ramadan goes sort of sets the precedence for how your entire year is going to go until the next Ramadan. And so, inshallah, if our Ramadan, we work really hard and we fight our nafs and we, you know, we break down those barriers between us and Allah and we actually work on ourselves, then inshallah, we'll see those rewards throughout the year and we'll feel a stronger connection to Allah. So here's just like a little recap. So with the creating traditions, again, you know, we look at our family, we look, you know, okay, what are the kids doing? We look at our community, our neighbors, our friends, our relatives even. And, you know, we should really try our best to make it a time where we're not being selfish, you know. We should look and see, okay, who are the converts in our community as well. You know, I have a lot of friends who are converts and they told me that, you know, and I really would have loved to invite one of mine, but she's in a completely different time zone. But one thing that she told me is the way that she was able to create a tradition in her home was to just develop what worked for her to strengthen her relationship with Allah. She wanted to be able to, you know, have a Ramadan that wasn't Christmas. She didn't want to have an Advent calendar. She didn't want to have anything to do with Christmas. She wanted to feel a sense of connection to Allah. And so, you know, when she ended up having a family of her own and her own children, then she ended up creating the same traditions, pretty much everything that I've mentioned here. And, you know, we should really reach out to our community and see who are the people that are alone, who are the people that are doing Ramadan on their own, especially now with, you know, COVID. There's still a lot of different states that have a lot of restrictions. And so we should try our best and try to check on people who, are doing Ramadan alone. It can be difficult for some people. And so we shouldn't forget that. So if you reach out to your masjid, they can tell you, they know the different families in the different cities even that, need that help or that need that extra connection, even just calling somebody, having a Zoom iftar. That's something that you can also create as a tradition. Inshallah, I hope that this is the last Ramadan that we experience with COVID, and that inshallah Allah lifts this whole pandemic and that we never have to have it like this again. But it wasn't so bad last year having things online. I didn't think that I would be able to feel the qiyam because I really love doing in-person qiyams, but that's something that continue to be so beautiful, mashallah. And inshallah, we'll still be able to feel that benefit. So remember, the most important thing is to create this tradition that's suitable for your family. We shouldn't look at what other people are doing. We shouldn't try to compare. I know there are these like over the top Ramadan setups these days, and that's great. It works for some people. But, I think that, maybe the majority isn't able to do that. And so we should be practical and we shouldn't be frivolous in the way that we, celebrate Ramadan and Eid. The biggest thing that we want to do is instill the love of Ramadan and Allah and Islam in our children's hearts and to maintain it in our own as well as adults. And so when we have that connection through our different forms of worship, that's what we'll take with us forever, inshallah. So we should keep those, inshallah, into consideration. Those are the primary purposes. Okay.
Jazakallah khairan.
No, it keeps freezing. Sorry,
okay.
I'm waiting for the next slide.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. You have online resources. I also want to take a little bit of time to ask you questions. So inshallah, as soon as you're finished.
Okay. Yeah, I'm almost done, inshallah. So here, there are hundreds of resources, okay? These are some of the resources that I added, and there was one more actually that I wanted to add. My friend, her daughter started this really cute Ramadan and Eid, business, and it's called Inaya Noor Khan. You can find her on Instagram. She makes these really cute yard signs that say Ramadan Kareem, and it has like a llama. It's so adorable. And she's actually a former classmate of my son. So she's I think 10 years old and really cute, very simple and beautiful signs that she does. And then here are some other websites. The Rustic Home, Days of Eid, Weaving the Nest. Weaving the Nest is new, and it's also a dear friend of mine who's from the Bay Area, but doesn't live here anymore. And she creates these beautiful, just really amazing things for Ramadan that are, I believe, handmade, and they're made out of wood. And so these are just some online sources. And then okay, let me turn this off. I'm gonna stop screen sharing and then I'll turn on my video, inshallah. Here we go. Okay. So the website I told you about is called IslamicBooksForKids.com, and it has a list of so many books for Ramadan for your kids. And here are some of the decorations that I have. I use the same decorations every year. I might add like one or two things. I love adding candles. The lights that I had, they got tangled everywhere. So I ended up getting star and crescent lights that they hang on the wall, and they're battery operated. They're really cute. And then here's the Ramadan countdown calendar that was made for our family many years ago. I have yet to find the felt stars. I'm hoping that somebody in the house finds them. And then here's a book that I actually really love. It's called Craft It Up. If you Google it, I can't remember where I found it, but you can find it online. And it uses household items, to make crafts, and they're crafts that kids can make on their own, using like paper, cardboard, tissue paper, just all kinds of things. And it keeps them really like occupied in a nice way where they're making something that they can actually give as a gift for Eid. And then here's something else that I found recently. It's a Lego set. I have a child that's very into Legos, and this would have been nice for Hajj, but I figured it's Ramadan and I'm not going to wait till Hajj. So this is by Dean Bricks, and it's a Lego set that looks like the Kaaba. And um, I don't promote Amazon, but you can find it on Amazon now if you're in a hurry. And you know, if Dean Bricks can't ship in time, but it's beautiful. We haven't opened it yet, but it's going to go in the basket, inshallah. Um, and then there are these signs. I know Party City was selling really cute Ramadan decorations that are simple and very affordable. So there are so many ways that we can, you know, create traditions in our home. We don't have to do what they do for Christmas, where every year you get new decorations. We don't have to be like that. It's not about that. It's about developing love of Ramadan and of Islam, and you know, having a tradition that suits your family. So you should really keep that in mind. And you know, Allah says a lot in the Quran that it's not a good thing to be frivolous. It's not from our deen. It's not who we are. The Prophet ﷺ lived so simply. And you know, yes, we're trying to instill the love of, you know, Islam in the hearts of our kids, especially living in the West, but we should still do it the right way, inshallah. And it doesn't have to be over the top. So that's it. If anybody has any questions, these are just the traditions that I've personally been, you know, been doing in my house.
Thank you so much, Ustadha Suzane. That was nice. It was a good mix of giving advice to families, people with children, making sure to take care of the converts in our community, keeping in mind for professionals, making sure you use the prep time, right? Getting all the food prep out of the way, ordering your gifts, ordering your whatever you're going to give to your neighbors ahead of time and prepping. I think that was some really good advice, alhamdulillah. So thank you for that. We do have a couple of questions in the Q&A.
Yeah. Okay.
Just touching on any advice that you'd give to somebody feeling the void and having to spend Ramadan far from your family. I know that you are far from your biological family, close to us, alhamdulillah, your spiritual family. So what's some advice for those far away from their biological families?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's really hard. You know, I would say try to have Zoom iftars, and if you can't because of the you know, the time zone or the time difference, then definitely FaceTime each other on a daily basis, even if it's only for 5 minutes. And I think that it's really important that we keep reminding ourselves on a daily basis that Ramadan is our time to connect with Allah. It's that once a year time where, you know, of course it's still about like people and family and community and friends and everything, but you know, I feel like one thing that COVID taught me personally is, you know, Ramadan, it kind of took me back to what it would have been like, you know, back then. And I'm talking like way back then, like during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, where their primary focus was Allah. And, you know, it is difficult. I would say, you know, if you could just maintain connection by talking to them on the phone or FaceTiming. I haven't seen, you know, my parents in 2 years, and you know, they live on the opposite coast, on the, you know, opposite side of the country. It's really difficult for me, but you know, I try to keep my eye on the prize. I try to constantly remind myself that this is dunya, and inshallah, you know, those feelings don't last. Those feelings of sadness, they don't last. And you know, if we continue to put Allah first and ask Allah to make it easy on us, then inshallah it will be easier.
Thank you, Suzane. And then also just some recommendations for moon sighting locations in the Bay Area. For those of you who are in the Bay Area here around us, where do people moon sight? All over the place. Go outside. We have clear skies. The weather's beautiful.
I mean, well, okay. So because of COVID, last year we went to a spot thinking that nobody else would be there. And we ended up running into, I mean, we had like a couple of friends that, oh, actually, no, people still got together in the same spot that we normally go to, which is, I believe it's called Monarch Park in San Ramon. But we decided not to go there. We went and moonsighted with another family, just one other family. We wanted to still be strict and maintain social distancing. And they have like, they live in an area where it's completely open near Livermore. I mean, you can literally see in every single direction. It's incredible. It was still hard to sight the moon. I don't think we were able to sight it last year here in the Bay Area. I believe it was still a little cloudy. But I think generally people go to Berkeley. Is it, Ustadha Fedwa, correct me if I'm wrong, is it the Science Center that people go to?
Yeah, the Lawrence Hall of Science is one spot that people go to because it has a good viewing deck.
Yeah,
There's John Lewis Park in Hayward,
yeah.
off the 84 with Sidi Yusuf Ismail.
Oh, mashallah,
They
the
do
astronomer.
a moon sighter.
Yeah, if you can go with him, I would highly recommend that because
Um,
he's the astronomer.
right, and then Averroes High School this year is doing a moon sighting event with Sheikh Alauddin al-Bakri. A couple of places last year actually did them via Zoom. I know that
Oh,
MCC East Bay did moon sighting via Zoom. So
nice.
you can sort of go to your backyard, but at least be communally linked to people online,
Yeah,
which was nice.
yeah, yeah. No, it's beautiful. I think that's very important. There are so many different places. You can even, find a spot for your friends or family. Like you can go on your own. Depends on where you live. If it's a clear day, the best thing that you can do is try to go to a high spot. I mean, here in the Bay Area, if you can go like, I mean, when I first moved here, I called them mountains because in Michigan everything's flat. But if you can go somewhere high up, in the hills where you really get a good view, then you might be blessed enough to sight the moon. I have a friend who, subhanallah, every year she's always able to see it with her eye, just so clearly, mashallah. And then we usually see it like 15 minutes later. It's so hard to sight the moon when and it's not necessarily the same thinness every single year. I mean, every month. I apologize. That doesn't mean that like the size of it doesn't mean oh, okay, this is the new moon or not. Like it's sometimes a different size every month. But that's astronomy. We won't get into that.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, and I think, for us, even going out to the backyard, even if you're not going to see it,
yeah.
it's still a sunnah to go out. And it's just something that sort of, you take a little
Mhm.
snack for your family or for yourself, just a little, almost like a tradition or a ritual that of going out and worship and sighting the moon. It's a worship.
Yeah.
So we highly encourage it. And then if you happen to see the moon, you just feel so overjoyed. So definitely recommend that.
It's it,
Um,
it's a very emotional moment. It's really
Yes,
amazing. Yeah.
yes. But on both ends, for Eid and for moon sighting.
Yeah.
A lot of people are asking about the book recommendations. Is there a specific website? You said you would share a
Um,
website that had
yeah.
lots of book
Yeah.
recommendations.
So the website is called islamicbooksforkids.com. I learned about them last year because I well, they were the first bookstore to purchase my book. And so that's why, their name kind of stuck in my head. And I actually went and checked them out, and they have a really good list of Islamic books for every topic. Let's see. One book that comes to mind that I remember putting in my kids' basket is Under the Ramadan Moon. There's a Ramadan activity book where every single day they do a different activity. I can't remember the title of it. It's for maybe like 5, 6 year olds. So I don't have it on me. I tried to find it, but I couldn't. And there are just so many different books. Really, aside from this website, if you search on Instagram and you put Ramadan books for children, then you'll get like a whole listing on there. It's amazing what we have now, mashallah, in terms of resources. And for crafts, you can make it like a fun activity. It can be something as simple as coloring a picture of a masjid. And if you get that Ramadan craft book as well as the Ramadan 30 days, then they're set. It doesn't have to be this big lavish basket. Kids, they don't need things. They just want you to, spend time with them and, teach them things, tell them stories. And that's really where it's at is, teaching them the meanings of Ramadan and why are we even doing this to begin with?
Yeah, I saw a really nice moon activity with just chalk. And so when you sight the new moon, you draw the moon with chalk, and then every day you can add a little bit more until you get to the full moon.
I like
And
that.
then you start erasing until
That's so
it's
cute.
Eid.
I like
So it's a
that.
very simple, just with chalk. Somebody recommended using Google Sky app to find where the moon is going to be in the sky, and then after that, it helps you kind of know where to look. That's a good recommendation. And then
That's
we have a question. Do you have a good English translation for teenagers of the Quran that people, maybe their children are
um,
asking?
well, I it's tricky because I don't necessarily recommend that somebody navigate, an English translation on their own, especially if it's a teenager. So maybe it can be something that, the parent can do with the teenager. And, I would say the study Quran. I will be honest and say that I actually don't use English translations at all. But that's only because I have Arabic resources. But from what I've heard, the study Quran is good. If Ustadha Fedwa can recommend one as well, that'd be great. I apologize. The
That's
first one
okay.
I've ever used was actually by Sheikh Sabuni, who actually passed away less than a week ago. And I studied from his tafsir when I was a teenager. And subhanallah, he passed away last week. So if you could just, read a Fatiha for him. He put together one of the easiest tafsir for the Quran in Arabic that pretty much like a very average Arabic student can read. But for English, please, if Ustadha Fadwa can recommend something.
I actually would recommend just having your maybe teen or child follow one of the Quran series that we had a lot of really nice daily Quran recaps of like the juz for that night. They would recap, one of our local scholars or one national scholars. I know that Yaqeen did a really nice series with Imam Omar Sulaiman. That was every day he would take a juz and give commentary on it. I like that kind of thing for
Yeah.
children and for teenagers because they're able to follow. It's in a medium they're used to using. And somebody online here recommends I haven't heard of this one, but the Clear Quran.
Oh, right.
And
There's
yeah,
also,
so that one is a nice one.
yep.
But I think Yaqeen is a good resource for teenagers as well.
Right.
Can you rename the Arabic resource of the Quran? So what was the if you could restate the tafsir?
The easiest of them is called Safwat al-Tafasir. It's kind of a tongue twister. Safwat al-Tafasir. Zaytuna College Bookstore might sell it. I got my copy in Syria, and his name is Sheikh Ali Al-Sabuni. He passed away last week, I believe maybe in Mecca, but he's of Syrian origin. And yes, Yaqeen Institute is excellent, and they do a lot of things as well in Ramadan. That's another thing. We're all going to be bombarded with like a million things that we can have access to in Ramadan. That's another thing. Sit down and determine what it is that you want to listen to in Ramadan. Of course, Rahmah Foundation is going to be your first, inshallah. But there are so many different things that we can listen to. I know like Imam Tahir Anwar here in the Bay Area, he does like a after Maghrib or no after Isha Quran tafsir as well, and it's really awesome. And it's like for 20 minutes long. So there are so many different things that we can utilize and just have as something we listen to before we move on to our Taraweeh inshallah and to our Qiyam. So
And
let's
then just really two last quick questions, hopefully, just before we end this evening. So we're going to just take the last two. Time
yeah.
management advice for moms working full time with young children with respect to increased ibadah in Ramadan. I just want to say you're already deep in ibadah if
Yeah.
you are a mom who's working, taking care of young children. That's 3 layers of ibadah there that you're offering your Lord, mashallah, every day. And then Suzanne, what do you offer the sister?
You pretty much you ice the cake with that one. The work of a mom is like, I mean, really it's the highest form of ibadah that you're in at that moment. And so it's hard to feel that spiritual connection in Ramadan. I know when my kids were younger, it was so difficult for me because I personally would have rather been reading Quran all day versus changing diapers. So it was really hard. It was like a total nefs breaker, but I had to constantly remind myself that it was a form of ibadah. If they're like in the toddler phase and everything, then maybe you can do a craft together while playing Quran in the background. So since it is the month of the Quran, you can play Quran in the background as long as nobody else is talking and nobody is being disrespectful around the Quran or anything. And it's something good. It's very calming. It can calm them, and then you can do something together. So you're doing 2 acts of worship in one by listening to the Quran and by bringing joy to your child's heart. Bringing joy to our kids is actually a form of worship, and of course them doing the same for us. And so none of these things go to waste. We're getting, inshallah, the ajr for serving our families as well. I really, I hope, inshallah, that, our families can all step up and, help each other and make it a Ramadan where everybody benefits from it and nobody feels like nobody's going to be shortchanged, but it's more of a sense of like, depending on the ages of your kids, what it is that you can do to help each other. But yeah, just keep in mind that your ibadah as a mother and you're working and all that. I mean, you're superwoman already. So your ibadah is better than somebody staying up all night, So just keep that in mind, inshallah.
Yeah, we used to call when you get up for your children at night the involuntary tahajjud. So
Mhm.
when your nafs has the choice, it feels good to get up for tahajjud because you're like, oh, look what I did. I got up for
Yeah.
tahajjud. But when your child wakes you and it's sort of involuntary that you have to get out of bed and care for this young child, it's involuntary. Inshallah, the reward is greater because you're sort of challenging your nafs there more than, having the choice. So
Yeah.
we wish the sister well. And then, of course, the more difficult group, um, any tips for Ramadan with teens? So what should we do
Uh-huh.
for Ramadan with teens as they sort of transition? They're not so much into the crafts anymore,
Yeah.
but and they maybe helping them to establish some good goals and some
Yeah.
habits that will carry them through.
I think I'll say what my parents did with me. There was two things that helped me is my parents never forced us to do anything specific. They always led by example. My mom literally never said to me, "You have to finish a khatam in Ramadan." She never, ever, ever said that. She would just go. She'd say, "Okay, I'm gonna go start my Quran, and this is my time. And if you want to go back to bed, you can. If you don't want to, then you're more than welcome to join me and read." That's all she said. And my mom's so smart. She knew what she was doing. And so I was like, I don't want to miss out. Like teenagers are kind of like, I don't want to miss out. Or, they have that kind of like, attitude with it. And so I would actually sit and I would read Quran. And, I wouldn't last long. And that's okay too. Sleeping while you're fasting is actually a form of worship. So if your teenager is sleeping too much, it's still a form of worship. And during the teen years, their bodies are still developing, and they've actually done studies that their bodies do need more sleep. Um, I'm not saying let them be lazy or anything or miss their prayers, but I think that just leading by example, maybe getting them good books that they can learn more about the seerah and the Quran with, and listening to all those cool things like Yaqeen Institute. Teens love that kind of stuff. I mean, it really speaks to them. So I would say just kind of keep it simple, do it so that they're still working on their own school schedule and they're not slacking on their studies, but definitely add like a couple of components. If they're able to read Quran, encourage it and say, hey, are you going to set any Quran goals for yourself? But set it for yourself first so that they see that you're doing it first. And if it's never been something that has been a tradition in the home, then this is a good time to start it. You can say, hey, listen, we're going to all start a tradition as a family. Everybody's going to create their own Quran goal. So do what's suitable for you. But with teenagers, we have to be super careful not to, impose things on them that are not obligatory, or to like, give them too much that they can't handle, because we don't want to turn them away.
Thank you, Ustadha Suzane. That was a really beneficial session, and we're so happy that you were able to rejoin us. Inshallah, as we near Ramadan, we'll be doing the Friday night qiyams, and Ustadha Suzane does join us for those leading the prayers. So inshallah, if you've enjoyed her sessions, she'll continue to be part of our programming through Ramadan. If we can ask you now just to end the program with a closing dua. And inshallah, sisters, we thank you for coming this evening, and we look forward to seeing you next Friday. And please join us tomorrow for the food demo session and tips from Noha Al-Sharqawi, food blogger with sugar and garlic. Thank you.
All right, so I'll say the dua, inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا اللهم يا واصل المنقطعين أوصلنا إليك وأحسن وقوفنا بين يديك ولا تخزنا يوم العرض عليك. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك وطاعتك ومحبتك. اللهم أعنا على دوام ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. اللهم دلنا عليك ودلنا على من يدلنا عليك. اللهم اجعل القرآن الكريم ربيع قلوبنا ونور صدورنا وجلاء همومنا وحزوننا، واجعله حجة لنا لا علينا يا رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد في الأولين، وصل على سيدنا محمد في الآخرين، وصل على سيدنا محمد في الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين. اللهم بارك لنا في شعبان وبلغنا رمضان. اللهم بارك لنا في شعبان وبلغنا رمضان. اللهم بارك لنا في شعبان وبلغنا رمضان. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا، على نية القبول والفتوح والنجاح والفلاح، وإلى حضرة النبي سر الفاتحة.